New York Supreme Court Justice Gregory Carro just dismissed the terrorism charge against Luigi Mangione. Mangione is still facing federal murder charges and additional state charges in Pennsylvania after gunning down a healthcare CEO. This came at Mangione's first appearance in state court since February. Mangione had been facing state charges: first-degree murder, terrorism, stalking, multiple firearms offenses. He has pled not guilty. During a hearing in New York Supreme Court on Tuesday morning, Justice Gregory Carro ruled that evidence presented to the grand jury wasn't sufficient to warrant the terrorism charge. Justice Carro wrote, while the defendant was clearly expressing an animus toward UHC and the healthcare industry generally, it does not follow that his goal was to intimidate and coerce a civilian population, and indeed there was no evidence presented of such a goal. This comes as a win for his defense attorney. Mangione's defense attorneys had attempted to have his state case dismissed over claims that it conflicts with the federal government, with the federal indictment, rather. They have sought to block federal prosecutors from seeking the death penalty, and they also want to block prosecutors from using evidence collected during Mangione's arrest in December, arguing that officers failed to read him his Miranda rights and conducted a warrantless search of his backpack. Mangione's next court appearance is November 7 in Pennsylvania. His next appearance in a New York State court is December 1st. Mangione's next federal court appearance is scheduled for December 5, when the judge in that case is expected to set a date for the trial to begin sometime in 2026. Jackson, your thoughts on Luigi Mangione and this decision from the judge?
I think that it makes sense. I mean, like, I don't really think, like murdering someone really necessarily qualifies as terrorism. I don't really agree with that. I don't, just legally, I don't see how he could possibly get away with what happened. I'm not speaking to how anybody feels about him or how they should feel about him. But it doesn't seem like he'll be able to walk free of this just because of all the evidence against him. But I think that it's good that they dropped the terrorism charges, because I don't really think that it particularly qualifies for that. I think that for people who do see Luigi Mangione as a hero, I think it's pretty incumbent upon all of us to actually work to get laws passed, because there's a lot of other actions that this young man could have taken at the end of the day. What he did didn't change the system. Prices are still going up. People are losing their health care. So I'm not defending what I'm not doing. Don't get me confused. I'm not defending the CEO. What I'm saying is that Luigi Mangione is almost certainly going to spend the rest of his life in prison, and he doesn't really need to be in that position. So I think that it's incumbent upon the public to do everything that we can to get better politicians in office, look locally, get better laws passed so that we can actually have cheaper healthcare, affordable healthcare. But otherwise, again, it's good that the terrorism charges are gone, but we're still talking about a young man who threw his life away at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think on the technical definition, it's not terrorism. I agree with the judge on that. But the glorification of this, the excusing of this murder, the justification of it has to stop. I think, we, and I don't want to say we because I'm not part of that, but many on the left who have glorified this, who have excused it, have lost their way. We can protest. Like you said, we can find better leaders. We can elect people who will actually fight for institutional change. We can make sure that we finally get that universal health care that's been elusive for some reason in the richest nation on earth. We can make sure that people can't get kicked off of their health care, can't be stuck to employer-based health care like so many are, and can't leave a job because they're afraid that they will get sick. We can do all of that. We can protest in the streets. We can march. We can rally. We can petition. We can post. What we cannot do is take violence into our own hands. What we cannot do is glorify that violence, which normalizes it. When you stop seeing the humanity in every person, you start being able to justify really terrible actions. And that's from Luigi Mangione taking down a healthcare CEO. That's from Democratic lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband being gunned down at their house. That's from Charlie Kirk being gunned down while speaking at a university in Utah. Yet another school shooting in this country. We are justifying horror. We are making this a very scary place to live, and this is just not an okay trend. That's not something you can do in this world. You cannot take the law into your own hands. You cannot commit violence because you disagree with somebody's ideas or what their job is. You fight to change it. Be better than the people that you believe are negative forces in this world. When you condone violence, you become as bad. You become worse when you condone violence over those who do not condone violence and do not carry out violence. So we've really, I pray that this tragedy about Charlie Kirk is a wake up call for all of us. Because really, at the end of the day, despite what anyone does, it's also a tragedy for that healthcare CEO to be gunned down. It's a tragedy for the Democratic Speaker of the House of Minnesota to be gunned down. We have to be better than that. We have to be able to win with our words. I don't know how we lost sight of that, but I pray that we get that back right now.